About a year ago, I was introduced to True Niagen, a supplement specifically designed to boost a key cellular resource called NAD. That's short for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. And I was really impressed with the research that showed that increased NAD levels can promote cellular repair, maintain healthy mitochondria, and increase energy throughout the trillions of cells in our body. I've been taking True Niagen ever since, and I am truly persuaded, which is why I'm so excited to welcome them back to the program. Let's get into how True Niagen works. From age 40 to 60, humans can experience a 50% decline in NAD, leaving ourselves with a shortage of that incredibly valuable energy resource. Additionally, things like immune stress, poor diet, even alcohol consumption can all deplete our cell NAD levels. Research suggests that increased NAD can support cellular defense against these physiological stressors. True Niagen is designed to boost NAD levels and is backed by clinical research and regulatory approvals. Now, while the research is still evolving, I am truly impressed by the possibilities surrounding NAD and the research behind True Niagen. And I suggest you check out their information for yourself. To learn more about the research, science, and to order your supply of True Niagen supplement, visit drdrew.com/TrueNiagen and use the code DREW at checkout for a special discount on orders of 3 bottles or more. So that's my website, drdrew.com/TRUNIAGEN, and use the code DREW today.
Hey everyone. It's a dose of Dr. Drew.
And it's a dose with Sex with Emily Morse in the house. People already on the chat are saying, we miss Emily and Mike in the old Love Line days. Both of us miss it, right?
We miss it a lot. Yes, absolutely. We got to do a reunion. That would be easy now.
It's a good idea. We'll do it on your show. So here's the deal with Emily, of course, sex relationship expert, podcast pioneer, best sex info at sexwithemily.com, podcast Sex with Emily released 3 times a week, and the Sirius XM show Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 p.m. And today, I guess I'm on the best of podcast, just by coincidence.
This is a coincidence. I know. I love it. Today it's porn. We talked about this, a conversation we had 2 years ago, and it was about real sex versus porn sex. We had a great conversation. Coincidentally, we are releasing it today. So, and then we were texting with Susan yesterday, and I was like, this is perfect.
And they're complaining, and I noticed that I'm echoing on your end, and the chat is complaining that there's a bad echo.
Oh, God.
Yes, Mr. Producer.
You know what I think? It's something to do with the screen.
Somebody needs to mute their input, they're saying. And I think that's probably true.
There's always a sound problem.
It's me. It's on my side. Unless maybe I'm coming across.
It's always me, Drew. I love that it's you, because it's always me.
It's an echo. I know. You know what it is? It's this. I've got to turn this down.
Maybe your mic is.
Well, you see the thing you're looking at right now, the screen?
The computer?
The screen with Emily's face.
Oh, yes.
That is echoing. I found out before. He didn't show me how to turn off.
Why don't we just turn off the whole screen?
That's in Pasadena. Are you at your house? I want to come over and hang out. When can we do that again?
Anytime. We're stuck here most of the time.
Let's try.
Okay, I'm going to North County. We do that too.
See if this kills Emily's voice.
Okay, Emily, still. Sorry, I need to hear if you're speaking.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Wait.
No, that killed her voice. That's no good.
Why don't we just stop that screen if that's picking up? I don't need that screen.
Okay, I'll turn it off.
Okay.
Let me just shut it off. Boop. There we go. Hopefully that worked.
How'd that work? How was the echo?
It's really nice to see your face, though. I have to say.
I know. I would rather see Emily's face, but then I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking at lovely Emily. Before we go on, Todd, you mentioned the dexamethasone study. I did see that, and it's funny. Oh, there's still echo.
No, it's on. It'll take a minute.
Okay. You guys, they're still bad. They're saying did not work. Emily, do you have earpieces in?
It sounds
I don't. I don't have any earpieces in, but I have a whole bunch of equipment here. I could. I just do it. I'm just on my laptop.
I'm wondering if maybe it's coming through somehow on her end.
Let's do this.
And you're echoey too, Susan.
Testing 1, 2. Let's see how that works.
I could try something else
because it says the camera was on.
Anyway, the dexamethasone study looks excellent. I strangely was thinking about corticosteroids and how they could affect the cytokine storm, and I was thinking, it's fixed now.
It was the camera was picking it up, I guess.
Okay, good.
Because we moved some cameras around, so I could be in the picture. Hi, everybody.
maybe we should have done that. I'm trying to prepare for my show tomorrow. And okay, we see Emily. Caleb comes on Monday and he does Ask Dr. Drew, and he screws with everything. And then when I come on, I have to screw around and fix it. So we haven't got a system.
Explain to me. Do you know? I understand technology.
Sound is the worst. It's the worst, but.
So dexamethasone is a corticosteroid like prednisone. It's shown to have really excellent efficacy. I believe there's a 35% improvement in survival rate. And it doesn't surprise me. I actually had used prednisone a couple of times on some COVID patients, and it seemed to have some benefit. So it does not surprise me. It's not a panacea. It probably needs to be used with remdesivir and other interventions like maybe IL-6 inhibitors or CCR5 inhibitors. Andrew, is that data out yet? And Andrew Ashkasvili is one of our chat participants.
It's your boyfriend.
He's my boyfriend. So Emily, what's going on these days? Tell me about the radio show.
Okay, so I'm on Sirius XM in the evenings, Monday through Friday, as you know, 5 to 7 p.m. But now I'm doing it from home on Zoom as everything's happening. And it's been, we've the callers and we've had some guests, and you got to come in on the show. But it's really people are. It's been a very interesting time. And so doing the podcast, it's like we're in a very interesting time right now where couples and people, first of all, let's talk about singles for a minute. If you're single and just dating, well, everything's changed there now too. A lot of people are home. Yeah. They're, we're having lots of intimacy. And then people in relationships, the calls I'm getting are like, we're bored. It's tough. We're in a really hard time. We're in the middle of a trauma, a traumatic time, a depression, the epidemic. Culturally, what's happening? Sex could be the last thing on people's minds.
Well, what happens? As you know, I'm a biologist, so I was thinking about the biology and what happens in times of stress or threat or famine. First thing that goes is the sex drive. Boom, gone. And so I'm wondering if all this craziness is having actually biological effects on people's libido.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it absolutely is having an impact. I mean, anytime we always say like stress and anxiety is going to kill our sex drive. Well, what's happening right now is having a direct impact, because when we are just in our thoughts and we're thinking and the blood rush to our head, it's going away from your genitals. I can tell you.
Well, no doubt about that. But even without the blood flow issue, it's just how our body conserves. It just goes into conservation mode when it's under threat.
Well, we're in fight or flight. I would say that we're all experiencing that right now. And we are tensing and we are stressed out and we're anxious and we're worried about so many dire things right now. It's really hard to get your brain around and let me figure out a way to have date nights and a way to, soothe with my partner. It's not, it's not happening as much as we'd like to. But
especially if you have a bunch of kids in the house.
Well, my friends with toddlers, it's not a good time, or anybody with toddlers right now. I think that's always a challenge. So
I'm saying what she's saying is that what has happened, and we're not complaining about this, is that because it's a crisis, a lot of adult children have moved home.
True that.
And that's fine. That's everyone's rounding the wagons, but that is also it's
right. We have two boys living here, 27-year-olds. But you know what? That one's back with a girlfriend. He seems pretty happy, and the other one is very lonely.
Oh,
it's sad.
Okay. We'll chat. We'll but I think that is true, Drew, and that brings up a good point. Whether you have kids at any age that have moved home or you have toddlers, what I think is important is that I think that if you're a parent or you're a couple with kids, you have to demonstrate to your kids that it's important for us to have intimate time. We need our time together. And I know that might be controversial I saw a face, Drew, that it was a thing, but I feel like if we don't show our kids that, we don't have to say exactly what you're going to go do, but how important it's to maintain intimacy in a relationship, no matter what's happening. Because
I agree. I don't think they're of a mindset to listen to that right now. They're just, because everyone's so miserable. Everyone's
Dudes
so
aren't
happy.
We need intimacy, or we need like date nights.
We have that. Are you complaining? Seriously?
No, not now. We've been going out to dinner, but it got a little rough at the end. I mean,
right?
We still have sex, but not
of course.
As much as we
nothing's changed.
Would.
I've got a bunch of new toys for you guys. No, but really,
we need them around.
The other thing is, it doesn't have to be your traditional. People think of sex in such a linear way. It's just this one act, but it's really just how are we going to be intimate right now? How are we still cuddle and touch?
And it was hard when you're feeling so distressed and depressed and anxious, and again in this sort of weird survival mode that was very unpleasant. It's still kind of lingering. I mean, it's a little bit of boiling the frog stuff going on now, in that we've sort of come to accept the status quo, even though it really isn't normal.
No, right. But that is so true, Drew. We are accepting it because we're also in it, right? Isn't it hard to kind of process
Yes.
extreme experience when you're in it, or process
Yeah.
a trauma when you're in it?
Yes,
And
yes.
so it feels comfortable to say, well, today is just as good as yesterday.
Right.
But I'm having these moments the last 3 days where I'm like, people, it's 3 months and I'm staring at the same wall and the same thing, and I'm over it. We need people, we need interactions, we have to get out there, and with everything else happening as well. We are just accepting it though. And I don't know what else to do about it right now.
It's funny, as you said that on our chat, Tom Cigar says, I'm not accepting it, although I should. So that's interesting. But I'm still getting lots of questions about having sex, connecting, dating, meeting during the social distancing. What do you tell people?
I tell people that you have to, this first, that your safest sex partner is actually yourself. And that is always true.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I think that we're starting to lift a lot of the restrictions. And so if you are choosing to be with somebody, what I love about this time is that there's an emphasis on connection over let's just go out and have sex, even though maybe that's people's intention. But we actually have to do the hard work right now and have difficult conversations. Like, how safe have you been? How many people are you seeing? Who's in your bubble? How many people have been in your home? And these are the kind of conversations, Drew, as you can recall, I was thinking about you because, we always say, I think you coined the term, is your picker broken? That people
broken picker. Yes.
Picker. Well, right now, everyone has to slow the whole roll. You have to,
Yeah, it's funny. In fact, I'm betting the conversation we had on this best of episode, if I recall, was a lot about broken pickers. And I have noticed that as well, that the picking isn't so impulsive, and so it's a little more thoughtful and a little more healthy.
Exactly. It's a lot healthier all around. I think that have questions. Do you share the same values and goals? And have a FaceTime, have it on Zoom. And then you get to slow it and think about, is this person actually right for me? What do I want right now? Because I think with all this, with this time that we don't want to accept, what is happening is a lot of transformation, which is what I'm seeing. We're sort of forced to go inward and question what is important, what isn't, who's important, what relationships have worked for me, which ones don't. And those are important questions to ask when the world's going so fast. We don't often take that time to do so.
Here, I'm gonna give you a couple chat comments. Josette says, I went on a few hiking dates. That's an interesting. So outdoor dates, I totally sign off on that. Because outdoor transmission of this virus is much more difficult. We've now done massive A/B testing on this with the demonstrations, and look, very few transmissions. Tom is saying poverty is going to outnumber the virus soon enough. Yes.
How's Nashville?
How is Nashville?
Yeah, I saw that they were letting people into bars and everything early.
Yeah, Adam was there over the weekend, and he said, I just
what
was
are the
with
numbers
him,
like?
and he said that it's like it's normal there.
And Emily needs to tell us her story about what she went through during the recent.
Yeah, so this is what Susan said. She wanted us to talk about this on the stream. So let me point out that
We'll get back to sex.
I particularly and Susan number 2 are your 2 worst friends ever, and we apologize. I literally thought about you during it, and I thought, no way, she's not home.
I forgot.
There's no way.
lived.
No, I thought about it. I thought, isn't she near there? Nah. Like, first of all, I convinced myself you wouldn't be near the action. Secondly, I thought you wouldn't be home even if it were. But what happened?
I was home. I haven't been home. I mean, I'm always home now. And I was, I started hearing, the sirens going and the helicopter. It was Saturday morning. So it was whatever date that was, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. And because I'm right there on Fairfax and Melrose. And I started, there was actually a rally. It's a block from my house, 2 blocks. And I went with some people from my staff. I went up there with my mask on. And then after about an hour, you started seeing there was the fire, the police car that was caught on fire. And then they started running, and then we heard like shots, and I ran back to my house, and there was massive crowds, but there was also the helicopters were going and the fire trucks. And I came inside my house about 2 or 3. And that's when it really started getting ugly around here. And there was, for about 24 hours, there were helicopters. They were around my entire block, circling Fairfax and Melrose. There was fire trucks, fire engines. And then there was these plates of cars. There was the trucks of police officers going by, and there was about 30, it looked like the National Guard, 30 going by, about each truck had 30 on them, going 6 lanes of cops and fires. There was a fire on Melrose, a fire trucks, 24 hours, and it was intense. I didn't sleep. I'm watching the news, and it was really, really, it was a very scary time, as you can imagine. So
Were you by yourself?
Charlotte was in town, funny enough, because it was my birthday.
Oh,
friend
happy birthday.
He just,
birthday.
I know, see.
And so just to be clear, Charlotte and Emily and Susan and I went to Cabo San Lucas one time.
We did. We had fun. Let's do that
We
again.
had
We owe
so
ourselves
many
that.
margaritas. It was a good time, and I would love to be back there right now.
Yes.
So
And it was right after the hurricane. Wasn't it right after the hurricane, if I remember right?
Yes.
It was after the hurricane.
And,
And
yeah, everything was all turned upside down.
But yeah, exactly. There was that devastation there as well, but not
So,
like.
and then I finally texted Emily because I went, God, I haven't talked to her in a long time. I had a question about something else. And she's like, oh, my car was just stolen. And
What?
And what people don't realize is that her car is full of vibrators. Whoever stole it has probably got a huge.
Store in my trunk.
What the hell?
Can you imagine? You pop up in the trunk and it says a bunch of dildos.
Yeah, you've heard all my stories about like the AAA guy coming. I'm like, sorry.
Are you okay?
It had to be rough.
No, seriously, are you all right? I mean, this we've been horrible friends, and now we're talking about these horrible things.
And now
Are
I'm
you
laughing
okay?
at you. I'm sorry.
Seriously, are you okay?
Drew, you've known me I am okay. Thank you for asking.
All right.
Okay. No, I'm
Did
fine.
you have
Susan,
insurance on those
I
vibrators?
have insurance. It's all fine. And the car got stolen a month ago, but then it got returned. What happened was my car got stolen. I came out in the morning and it was gone. And it's just so bizarre because I think, did I park it somewhere? And it actually was stolen, but then it got found about 10 days ago.
Oh.
And the sex toy. So Susan asked me when I talked to you on the phone, I said, I'm going to pick up my stolen car to see what it looks like. And there were no sex toys left in it. But there was like a crowbar and
selling them.
So anyway, back to my neighborhood, which is pretty safe, Drew. I am okay, but I miss you guys. What I really missed during this time is, and again, that day was I think a lot of what happened though, I believe we've had to make a lot of noise and there's had to be a lot happen to have change, and there's a lot of important change happening.
Yeah.
So that was my story, and I haven't even thought about that, but what I have been thinking about is that this time is that it is time of transformation, but also going back to, oh God, now I lost my thought, Drew. Where was I was going?
Somebody was commenting about how
well, you're a very strong woman.
I know, and I feel guilty. So
I know. I
let's
didn't
get you a
think of
dinner.
it.
We'll buy you a pizza.
Yes. I would love that. Let's get Margaret. Let's go to Mexico.
Let's do it. I'm in.
We are feeling the need to move. I got to tell you.
Who wants to buy
somebody
house
made a comment here, and somebody seconded it, that I talk about males needing job and purpose, and that is being withheld from men right now. And I agree, particularly millennials. I was talking to one of my sons about it. And he said, it's probably worse than we all realize, that what it looks like to be, particularly a young white male right now, is hopeless. And it just isn't the kind of opportunity. There isn't the same kind of choices to in terms of professions, and it just doesn't look encouraging for them, and males particularly do need to understand a place for themselves in the world in order to feel worthwhile. In order to even be available for a relationship, they have to first kind of know where they sit in the world. It's kind of how I felt about it when I was that age. Are you seeing problems as a result of those sorts of stressors?
Such a good question, Drew. I mean, I haven't really, I have this thought that I've had, this occurred to me, that how you do COVID is kind of how you do everything, meaning that men had these struggles before. If there was a bad economy, or they just didn't have a job, or they were out of work, I think that men often feel that, it isn't more of a masculine trait that if I don't have a job and I don't have the money, that I'm not going to be attractive to someone else, and therefore I feel less than, and I've let
Yep.
That's how comments that's always been true.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would also say that, so I haven't heard that in particularly right yet. I think that would maybe be a conversation in a few months more so, but I always hear that from men. And what I always say is, this is such a great, and always is that I understand that's their connection to their masculinity and their self-esteem, but there's so much more to it that I don't think that we're as superficial as that I think that women want depth. And we want connection, and we want intimacy. And that if we're actually having a Zoom call with somebody and he's really, interesting and smart, introspective, like all of your kids are,
well,
like your
son. But to your point, so let's, I think what you're saying is something that needs to be said, which is that women are, on their own in the workplace, and don't identify their worth with the worth of a male.
Oh.
It's with what they do in the workplace, right?
Exactly.
And so men don't have the same pressure to do that the way they used to, but they still, there's something that I've just, having talked to many tens of thousands of young males, they all want that. They all feel they need it. They're not settled until they have they understand what their place is in the world and what they can contribute. And I get that completely.
I know, but true it is, but that's the masculine. I have that in me too. I'm very much like that too. I've always felt if I don't have the job and I can't take care of myself, then I'm not going to be open for a relationship.
Right. Okay.
And
so there it is. Right. And so and that's the point I'm making, is that women now feel that way, maybe as much as men. We don't know, but men aren't feeling that way less. They still feel that way.
they do feel that way. And all I can say is get creative and do your inner work. I mean, I do think a lot. I mean, Drew, I'm going to say, like, therapy, what are your issues? Because even when we come out of this, and it will never be the same, is that a man who can't process his emotions fully and isn't able to truly walk through the world and connect in an authentic way isn't going to get laid either.
Well, and there's your therapy speaking, right? Which you've done a lot of.
EMDR for the last 2 years, a lot.
It's great. It's
always.
great. And I remember when you first, probably 2 years ago, you first started talking about trauma, and we started talking about doing things like EMDR and stuff. And talk about it. What has it done for you? What has it been like? What's that experience been for you?
Yeah, I mean, eye movement desensitization reprocessing is a therapy that we're talking about, and it really just it's a therapy that is supposed to go in, and when you remember old memories or traumatic experiences, either with a big T or a little t, sort of rewires your brain, rewires your neural pathways of your brain, or your response to it won't be as intense and as charged. That's the way
Yeah, and so it's literally, the way trauma works is your brain walls off the trauma, but that part of yourself that traumatized is still there demanding attention. It's just not communicating to your conscious mind. So it does things like cause you to pick bad people and reproduce traumas. And what EMDR does is allows access to those parts of the brain, and it literally wires inroads into it, so it starts to integrate and communicate with the rest of the brain. That's the way I think about it anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Drew. That's exactly what happened. And so it's a process. And what trauma is sort of a bigger buzzword right now in the therapy world, that I think if you look at like epigenetics too, is that what is it? Trauma goes how many generations? Like 3 or 4 generations?
That's right. That's right. And some of it's epigenetics, and some of it is that our own trauma, we communicate it one way or another to our kids.
Yes, exactly. And it's in our bodies. So that's why I'm talking about that. When I say you do your inner work, I mean, a lot of it's just stored everywhere to release it and understand it. But for me, I realize now I've been in therapy on and off my entire, probably for about 30 years. And I did a lot of talk therapy, and that's very helpful. I think that's a great start to talk and figure out. A lot of us paint these pictures, myself included. I would just speak about things that happened when I was younger and say, oh, yeah, but it's okay.
No, I've dealt with that. Yeah, it's fine.
And my dad died and I had a wicked stepdad. Oh, but it's fine. And then you go into therapy, and when you start to unpack it, you go, oh, it's not so fine. This stuff was a little bit messed up. And then I think in your 20s, or for me, I went through the thing where I was mad at my parents. Maybe you're experiencing that now with your children. You guys, or maybe anyone else, that like you get to be an adult, and you go back, if you're doing work, you think this was frustrating, or I saw myself in my mom and I resented her and I had a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. And then now with EMDR, going back, it's not as much telling your story, and people could start from wherever they're at. But for me, it was targeting on certain emotions I was having now. For example, certain struggles, like not being able to, I'm trying to think of a good one, trust my decisions. That's something I work on. I second guess myself a lot. Mm-hmm. And so in looking at that, let's say one day I went in and I said, I have trial, or I second guess myself. It's like, well, when was the first time you felt that? Oh, this thing happened at home. And then you remember experiences, because it doesn't just happen now, it happened younger. And then I would bring up the experience. We would do this process around it. And then my brain, I no longer have the same reactions around decision-making, and I understand where it came from.
And not only the same reactions, what starts to happen is you literally, there's 2 ways of saying this. You start seeing things with a new pair of glasses, or sort of from like you're in a different place. Like you are literally somebody somewhere else looking at the same issue now. So a whole new set of feelings emerge.
Right. And then you got to process those, because they've been buried forever. Exactly. But yeah, I no longer have the same charges. And I feel like it's been a very helpful for me.
So for me, I didn't need EMDR, but I had a lot of trauma type therapy, and it was about connecting to primary emotions, that they were just sort of off in the distance, and I couldn't get connected to them readily. It took a lot of repetition in a safe holding environment, as we say.
Yeah, you did the emotionally focused
I think
therapy?
it would go under EFT, emotionally focused therapy. Yeah, and so now you and I used to talk about the work I was doing. Does my stuff start to make more sense to you now that you've had all this EMDR?
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
all makes sense. And the thing is, I do. That's I remember you told me probably 5-6 years ago about this. And intellectually, I could have said, I know that there's a disconnection, but for me doing the EMDR and also doing more breath work and more meditation on a daily basis without missing it has also helped me feel things, because even though I could tell you, well, I don't feel anger a lot. I don't often feel, well, mostly anger. I don't feel anger. I don't have anger, but I feel anxiety, or what's underneath that. I'm more attached to fear. So then you think, when I start to feel things through this practice, I feel it in my body, like it's in my chest is tight. I must be having a thought that's making me angry or upset or sad. And then you just learn to identify it, your emotions. So I didn't have that experience as much. I mean, again, you dabble in feeling throughout a lifetime, but you could also, become more well-skilled.
No, that's very much the same stuff I was dealing with, is embedding your affect, embedding the feelings in your body, and then understanding them and regulating them, that kind of stuff. So let's go back to other people. So what's coming across your desk on the radio on a regular basis?
As far as what, like life, sex?
What are they asking you about? What are your guests been like? What's sort of surprising you right now? What are you hearing?
I haven't had guests lately. I haven't had a lot of guests in the sense of, it's been more of the calls, and I took a little bit of time off. But I would say the top questions are, what's funny, Drew, is that not a lot has changed in your 30 years on Loveline and my 15 years of Sex with Emily.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's astounding to me, is that people want to know why. My partner wants sex more than I do, so mismatched libidos.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one, or desire discrepancy, as we would call it. And then there's the people are bored and they want variety. In fact, the one study that came out from the Kinsey Institute about COVID and sex said that couples that we're having less sex. We definitely are. We're not having sex with the same frequency, but when we are and we're in a relationship, we are craving variety, and people are actually experimenting more now. Meaning, maybe they're using a toy, maybe they're having sex outdoors, that they have more time now. So I think that's we literally have more time on our hands for all of that. But the main bones, and people ask me this a lot, like, what does everyone want to know? And when I break it down, it's literally the same stuff. Why can't I orgasm for women, and for men, what's wrong with my penis?
Right. Is it normal? Is my penis normal? Is it big enough, work enough, whatever it does? And then women, how do I work?
How do I work?
And also, what's up with men? That's the other thing they always ask a lot about.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and Drew, what I found is that, very few men, I tell you, I have a lot of people who work for me now, like in their 20s, and they're dating the guys without jobs and the artists because they find them interesting and they want more depth. But I think it's the men who are thinking, oh, I need to have all of these things taken care of. But I mean, women, I pay them well. It's a different time right now. So what's up with men? And guys want to know just as much what's up with women.
Yeah, men get very confused. They do. They think once they figure one out, they've got you all figured out. And it's like, no.
They think that dating wise and sexually, it's like they think this is what my last partner wanted, so I'm going to do the same thing. No, and it's different. And that's why just be present, pay attention.
On the chat, somebody asked, should we legalize prostitution? Do you have an opinion?
I lean towards it.
Yeah.
I think we criminalized it for so long. So
yeah. You sort of would go with the Amsterdam model.
Yes, I would do everything like Amsterdam is. You know that Amsterdam right now in the Netherlands, they recommended that people get the government is recommending that people go home from work and have a sex break. They're saying, couples, you need to prioritize intimacy, have a sex break. They teach their kids about the clitoris when they're 3 years old. They say, this is your clitoris, this is your vulva. They give them the actual body parts. So yeah, they've legalized prostitution. I think we could learn so much about sex. We wouldn't have so much shame, and we wouldn't have so much fear and upset around sex in America.
They make it more of a public health phenomenon. They put it sort of under health generally, and that's the way they manage. My understanding is the legalized prostitution. Everybody's tested. Everything's done very clinically. The women are educated about what the function is they're supposed to be giving. Very, very different in here.
I have a question from an email.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where can I find legit help for diagnosing the lack of testosterone, especially during COVID? Does a trustworthy mail order kit exist? I'm 37-year-old male, 5'9", 165, healthy and athletic, but notice a lack of libido and self-motivation.
Okay.
Doesn't seem to change much with diet.
That is not low. Do not make any assumptions about your testosterone levels. Please, people, do not make... Because you have low libido or you're fatigued, that could be 1,000 medical problems and 1,000 psychiatric problems. So do not try to diagnose yourself. If you have a measured testosterone and you're a relatively young male below 200, then you need to figure out the diagnosis. Why is the testosterone so low? In terms of relatively low, well, we vary all over the place between 200 and 800, and what the level should be for a given male is quite varied. And particularly at times of stress, we drop down. Now, libido can drop for 1,000 other reasons, so please just get a thorough medical workup and make sure that doctor has some sensitivity to psychiatric issues as well, because those can also figure in rather prominently.
What about bioidenticals for men?
Once you have a diagnosis, once you are worked up, you can't begin to talk about treatment until you figure out diagnosis.
I love my bioidenticals.
I know that, Susan. And we've talked to Emily about that, right, Emily?
Oh, Drew, you were the one who told me about bioidenticals. Was Susan, like whenever I met you 8 years ago, and it blew my mind. And it's I wish people knew more about healthy ways to go about hormones, men and women. There's no information out there.
We did we did a couple of thorough podcasts on this. Can we call them up, Susan, or put them back out in front somehow, or maybe
let me find them.
Get the doctor back again? But I am an advocate of hormone replacement therapies, and particularly testosterone replacement. But back to the differences amongst women. Women are so different that each one responds differently to androgens. So you can't just say testosterone is going to work for all women. Some it doesn't. And so just the way if you take a progesterone predominant birth control pill, there's a lot of androgenic effects in that. Some women are depressed and shut down by that, and some women are sort of made accelerated, and their libido kicks up in response to it. So it's real varied, but a physician who really knows what he or she is doing with replacement. Yes.
So it was episode 190 on This Life You Live with Dr. Gary Donovitz, and I just put the link on the YouTube link.
Great.
On the restream, if anybody wants to hear more.
Yeah, Emily, you might be interested in it too. It's a really good conversation.
About that. Come to my show and talk about it. I would love that. I think so Drew, I get questions about that every single day.
You know what? You ought to have Dr. Donovan on. He's really quite knowledgeable about it. Donovitz, rather. He's very good.
Oh, he'd love to come on.
Yeah. I can talk in generalities about it, but he has a lot of clinical experience doing it. Has been doing it for many, many years. So.
I love my gynecologist. She was an obstetrician, is no longer an obstetrician now. She's just doing bioidenticals.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, again, and that's why I think biologically.
Pasadena's getting some.
It's extraordinary how much we overlook our biology, and it's also extraordinary how much our biology affects everything in terms of our behavior, our thinking, our relationships, and how we function in those relationships. And I'm not saying it's the exclusive issue, but we have to always you have to always think that piece through.
Absolutely, and we don't know. I feel like doctors don't talk to you enough about, specifically hormones too. If you're saying biology, why don't we, it never comes up. I mean, I think this is the kind of thing we have to do work on it. We have to do the research and figure out, but then you realize that hormones are literally controlling pretty much everything, right? I mean, your diet, your desire, your behavior, so many things in our life. And I feel like it's being studied more now, but I don't think anyone ever, I remember saying to a doctor once, well, why don't we know, it was a I can't remember. It was like my general practitioner. I said, why haven't we talked about this before? He said, well, we just don't know enough. It was like probably 5 years ago. I'm like, well, why don't we know enough about hormones? We should know. We should be talking to women about estrogen, testosterone.
Yeah.
True, no one brings it up, and they bring it up.
Well, here you don't appreciate the history from the clinician standpoint. We were all using estrogen and progesterone replacement for a long period of time. We had very sort of unsophisticated kinds of replacements. We had the old Premarin and that kind of stuff, and Provera. And then the Women's Health Initiative came out that said this stuff is a disaster. It causes cancer. It causes dementia. It causes heart disease. And all of us who've been using it for years were just sort of stunned because it had not been our clinical experience. And we literally were told by, you got to understand how much we're under the control of our professional societies. The leaders in our professional societies were saying, you are no better than a witch doctor because you're ignoring the science. You must stop hormone replacement. And that was a traumatic experience for an entire generation of physicians. We started tiptoeing back into it. We started looking at the data. It turned out the study was completely flawed, although it was huge. And that it's a much more complicated story. And most doctors just refuse to get into it because there's liability attached to it.
So that's why there is a dearth of information now, and why we're just getting back to it. Because
it's why you can't get clear information. That there are doctors like myself that are, have had our own experience with it and feel confident in recommending it, though it still has to be done with the patient fully understanding that it's not without risk. And then number two, very few doctors are like Dr. Donovitz or Susan's doctor who really has deep experience with doing this.
So that's interesting. That makes sense. It was probably was it the pharmaceutical companies funded a study or something and said
no. It was a giant international study called the Women's Health Initiative, and it was going to put to rest once and for all, does hormone replacement cause breast cancer? And the answer was a resounding yes. You're causing breast cancer. Well, it turned out to be a much more complicated story than that. They had very skewed populations they were studying. It was all a mess. It was a complete mess. But it went down as, hey, this is the gold standard that we all must follow. And you can understand once an international body has declared that to go against that and maybe to risk, have some real risk associated with recommending hormones, you can imagine the liability both ethically, personally, and legally, right? People were very reluctant.
I think Emily has a meeting she needs to go to.
Oh, you do?
Well, I know, Drew. I told you I went till 3:30, but now I love talking to you.
Somehow
always.
I knew it would go a little longer. I'm sorry.
I know.
Jonas Russell says, I thought I was tuning into Loveline. They like hearing the both of us together here talking about this stuff.
Can we do this more? This is so fun.
Sure.
We've been talking about it, but I would come back.
So before you go,
what's
what's the most popular toy you're getting into these days?
Oh, I have so many to bring you guys.
Drew wants a new one.
Okay, well, the first one is did I give you one of these? This is my Vesper necklace, which is the vibrator necklace, but now I have a Sex with Emily version on it that says, I come first, turn me on. It's a vibrator.
Nice.
And then I would say Revive has it. The womanizer, which you've always loved for years. I think
that was
I had
that
one
we
of
found out that was Nikki Glazer's favorite too.
So there you go. Yeah. So two vaginas can't be wrong. But then there's the Melt by Revive it's a womanizer. It's like if the womanizer and Revive had a baby. So it's the same one that's I love it.
The Melt.
I get so excited. I'm like, I will not be off the phone for 20 minutes because it's like choosing my favorite child.
You always know that. I mean, that's you're encyclopedic with that stuff. Plus, you know the history of all of it.
I do know the history of all the vibrators. I'd say something for couples too is just like a penis ring, which I love. And then there's one which is called the Pivot by Revive. And then there's Drew.
Yeah.
This is great for our at-home audience, or if you're quarantined or you're long distance, are all the products by Revive, the toys by Revive that work remote control with Bluetooth. And you launch an app called WeConnect, and you can remotely look at your partner and control their toy from anywhere in the world.
Buzz their box.
Somebody's complaining that the womanizer battery doesn't last long enough. So
send it back.
Send it back, she says. Okay.
I don't know. That doesn't happen to me. I've had all of them, and they last so long.
I always lose the chargers.
I know, Susan.
Jane Emily does not have children. They're asking if you have kids. No, she's not.
I have a cord problem in this house. I have to start.
We had a lot of other things going on.
Marking all our cord because we have so many cords everywhere. I don't know which one's which.
I'll get you some, whatever you need.
All
Can we hang out soon?
Yes. Yes.
Please.
Come visit soon.
Socially distanced. Thank you for having me.
Let's set it up maybe this weekend. All right.
Yeah, I would love that. Congrats on the success of your show. I'm happy to be on and come on Sex with Emily. I love you. Love you, Drew.
Done and done, Emily. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
And also, I just want to show this article that says couples kiss at Stagecoach Music Festival since 2000. And Americans between the age of 18 and 44 have become more likely to go for a year without sex, according to a new study.
I saw that article.
Let me get
mostly men. Interestingly.
Yeah, I can't imagine how you would ever live on that.
Okay.
Oh my God.
As Adam would say, passionate.
Yeah, we didn't have any problem with our sex life in the beginning of this. It was actually kind of nice to have you home a lot, you know.
Yeah.
Then you got busy again, and I think it's a timing issue.
I don't feel busy. I don't feel very productive, I got to say. Although, as I've spoken to this audience many times, this has made me feel purposeful and connected.
Somebody said they didn't like my face on the camera. It was freaking them out.
Why? Who said that?
I don't know what I was doing. I might have been moving my head back and forth.
Yeah, Tom, I'm a workaholic, but I'm not an out of control
he is.
workaholic right now. I just need to. I've seen more than ever with this COVID thing that I need to be. I just had a meeting right before this stream heated up, where I was talking to somebody about giving a speech in mid-July, and it changed my mood entirely to be able to address an audience and move an audience and convey some important ideas. It changed my outlook just having that conversation.
Somebody wants to know what the Red Hawk website is. I don't know what he wants, though.
It is I will tell you in a second, but Susan, I got to read this. It says, Susan, not your face, the box thing for autofocus is what they were talking about.
Oh, I didn't turn it off.
There you go.
Oh, oops.
Whatever that is.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So these guys, the needle destruction device, this is something I've been behind for a while.
I didn't notice that.
You for your Lancets, for your insulin syringes, boom, and it destroys all of it as a biohazard. These needles are all over our streets, folks. People need to, if you have law enforcement, if you're a nurse in a school nursing facility, whatever, we got to deal with this thing. It's a massive biohazard problem.
For that, it's nomoresharps.com.
This is the other thing, which is a thermometer, which
you gotta say where to get it.
Love.
So that's a different thing. You have to dial a number, right?
That is 866-4-RED-HAWK. As is.
They can't hear you, honey. Oh.
As is this, which is a UV, will clear a room of COVID. Look forward to more UV stories coming.
Look at him. He just swings it around. Be careful with that.
A hand version soon.
You have to call the number for that.
866-4-RED-HAWK.
But as far as the sharps go, it's nomoresharps.com.
Yeah, and so soon we're going to be able to walk into a car, like a taxi or an Uber, and UV the seats and the environment, and really get it. B World, that's not a sex toy. Sorry about that. And it's not a bong, car guy either. But in any event, give me your questions here now while I try to wrap this. Kelly Gallagher, when I try to call Howard and recommend you go on, what do you mean by that, Kelly?
Howard Stern?
Yeah, I think she means Tesla used UV.
He wants you on.
Isn't there layers of virus and you have to UV multiple times? Yes, you do, Malia. Yes, you do. It's not a simple matter. You got to really work at it, but it's effective. And listen, when I go on an airplane, I'm going to be wanding all the stuff. Trust me. So look, it's not like the COVID thing is gone. It's not like it's gone. It's that there are things we can do to really protect ourselves. And if we do all these things diligently, we won't be getting sick. We won't be spreading to other people. We won't be adding to the statistics. And we won't be having anybody talking about locking down again.
But that thing has to be plugged into Wand, the one that we have. And we've never plugged it in, by the way. We should do that.
The UV?
Yeah, you have to plug it in.
That's very strong. No one can be in the room for that.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah.
Oh,
I did talk about dexamethasone, JH, and I'm excited by the data there. And I'd been thinking corticosteroids were effective. Dexamethasone is a very special kind of corticosteroid with some special properties. I read the data this morning. It looked really quite encouraging about that. Farts don't push the COVID out, guys. Come on now. Meant to say, I'm going to call Howard and recommend you go back on to talk about COVID. Kelly, Gary called me when I was in the middle of all that chaos.
Shitstorm.
And did invite me to go on. I didn't feel it was appropriate. The story was still evolving. It was the fog of war a bit, and I just didn't feel right going in and talking about my opinion that was partially wrong, that I was apologizing for. And I also was worried what Robin would do. So that was the other thing. And Gary admitted to me he couldn't control Robin. So
yeah.
So, but thank you.
Well, Howard was going crazy about
it. And Howard is really very sensitive about this topic, and I want him to get through his stuff with it. And we all need to get through it.
Now he's going through a shitstorm. So
Howard kind of rode
they're
through it pretty
they're
well.
mad at him for wearing blackface.
I mean, did you hear him talk about it?
Yeah, but he sounded really deflated. I could feel his deflated demeanor. And I know the feeling because you feel so sort of let down, by whatever you did and also by being attacked. It's like weird. It humbles you.
Our friend Monica Ricci is saying she's feeling energized by booking speaking out there. Thank you for that. And you put up some amazing videos recently. Those exercise
She's been promoting us
protocols you've been putting up on video are really impressive and great combinations of exercises. Not stuff that I can do as an older male, but man, good for you for that core work. My goodness, excellent work.
He's like, look, Monica's doing
Did you
pull-ups.
see? I sent it to you. Those were not pull-ups.
Or what? I can't do that.
There was.
I'm jealous. I couldn't look.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
Still wearing a mask. That's up to you guys. I do think the masks are a good idea, and I think JH. I love the Howard guys, and they've got other things to occupy them now. They don't need me there, and that the main seat at the Howard Stern show, the main interview, has really now become a place for A-listers. I was privileged to sit in that seat a couple of times. It was really interesting to be the object of scrutiny by him because he's had so much psychoanalysis now. He knows really how to follow people's feelings and to interview in a way that felt just like therapy. It felt just like being on a therapeutic couch. And, Mark Maron does something similar to that, too. His interviews feel very similar also.
Yeah, he talked about it yesterday, how he's had a lot of therapy and he didn't like the way he was before. And he can't imagine having to see himself.
Howard, you're talking about.
Yeah. He talked about the time at the MTV
Mark's had a lot
Award.
of recovery and stuff, too.
Remember at the MTV Awards when he flew across the audience with his butt open and then landed on the rock stars in the middle of the crowd?
I think you are confusing two things.
No,
that was Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh,
you're thinking.
No, well, he did something where
he wore shots, a fart man on the stage, and he had chaps on with his ass hanging out.
Oh, it was Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
See how old I am? I can't remember who.
Yes, we were sitting right by Eminem when he got landed on by Sacha Baron Cohen.
I didn't go to that one.
Oh,
you were there alone. You got to see it.
Yeah, Jesse, I love Mark Maron too. And that poor guy has had a big loss recently. Send him love. He had apparently a woman that was the director for Glow, which if you guys haven't seen Glow, I recommend you watch his series. They were in a relationship, and everyone really liked this woman. Apparently, an extraordinary person.
Tragic.
And a really serious tragedy, and should not have happened again. Leah, I do have an opinion on the undercover nurse's story from the Elmhurst Hospital. I admire her raising important issues. I think it is important to always question what we're doing, but it's clear to me, and I'm saying this with peace and love, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She really doesn't know what she's talking about. Let me just show you, for instance, just two examples where, oh my God, she's too unsophisticated. She's criticizing how residencies and fellowships work in medicine. She doesn't know what that is. She had no business even saying those things. She then talked about a very sick COVID patient with a tracheostomy. If you've been on a ventilator so long that you need a tracheostomy, your life is in severe danger for a long time. And she said she spoke to this guy in the morning and they coded him after they moved her to another unit. Then she became paranoid that somehow somebody had killed this guy. People with on a trach after a long-term pneumonia on a ventilator have inflammatory diseases of the heart and will die suddenly. It happens all the time. She also talked about another patient that went on a ventilator and then extubated himself, and she said, he saved his life by doing so. Listen, the ventilator buys us time. What do you do when somebody's oxygen saturation is 82%, 78%? Their brain will die, their kidneys will die, their heart will die in a few hours. If you read the descriptions of the 1918 flu, it's how they died. It's the exact same thing. They would be sitting there talking to you, suddenly get short of breath, then get cyanotic and pale. They would turn blue, then go unconscious, and then be dead in a couple of hours. You can put somebody on a ventilator then and buy yourself some time. Oh yes, ventilators do damage. Yes, ventilators are a problem. It's a open conduit that causes pneumonias. There's all kinds of issues with it. But you got to understand the complex biologies we are fighting it's not appropriate for her to be commenting on that right now. Let's see. Do you think having a rally? I worry about the rally inside. I worry about that quite a bit. Why does a ventilator work better than other forms of oxygenation? Because it expands the alveolar cells. It pushes oxygen into the cells that allow the oxygen exchange, even in areas of lung reserve that you can't get your diaphragm to do on your own. That's how it works. So when you give high flow oxygen, 100% oxygen being delivered, even through a mask that is sealed, and or even a CPAP and that kind of thing, creating positive pressure to further expand the lungs, you eventually get to the point where you can't do more and the patient starts to die. You can buy some time with the ventilator. You can buy some time. Usually people go into respiratory failure because they have muscular weakness and they have difficulty expelling CO2. This is an oxygenation problem with COVID, which is ARDS essentially. Is fluticasone similar to dexamethasone? Not really.
There are a bunch of articles about steroids today.
That was dexamethasone, and that was very exciting. Very exciting. Do I suffer from RCS? What is RCS? Jay, what is RCS? You intrigued me now. Let me look back on your... thanks, Joshua. I was on Mark Maron's podcast a long time ago. He was great. I was on his TV show a couple of times too, which I really enjoyed. I just like spending time around him. Howard.
Yeah, I hooked you up with that.
Yes, you did.
Because I went on a flight on American Airlines and sat next to him for 6 hours. Didn't know who the hell he was. And a couple of years later, we ran into each other backstage at one of Adam Carolla's thing. And he goes, "Did I sit next to you on a flight to New York?" And I said, "Yeah." And I go, "My husband loves you. Can he be on your podcast?"
Downtown Trash. The exciting news about steroids is that the dexamethasone study came out, showed a 35% improvement in survival with the dexamethasone, which is has its own issues with it. Oh, that's funny, Joshua. Jeremy, rather. Thank you. Yeah. No, I do not have RCS. And the dexamethasone is, a good medicine for inflammatory processes, and so it makes sense that we'll have I'd been thinking about it for a couple of days. I remember I had severe mononucleosis with something like a cytokine storm, and I reversed when my team gave me corticosteroids, and I've been thinking about that lately. And so when I saw this study, I thought, oh yeah, there it is. Because we're not having good luck with targeted, well, some luck, but not great luck with targeted treatments of the cytokine storm, though some of that still may be useful. Kelly, we wanted to do the Teen Mom reunions virtually. There was a decision not to. There will be more coming,
We tried.
Yeah, more coming, I understand. Okay.
So I got the cursor off my face. I just want everybody to know.
Okay, so are you on the screen with me again?
Yeah, I'm in the corner, but
okay.
You have to turn the autofocus off, and I forgot. First day.
Projection.
I have to make all the mistakes.
So tonight, you guys may want to check this out on my Fox 11 show at 7:00 Pacific time. I'm going to be talking to Dr. Charles Murray, who is the lead scientist and investigator in the University of Washington COVID-19 healthdata.org. They're the ones creating the graphs that I've been following so carefully and relying on. They have quietly increased their total deaths up to 200,000 expected by October. And they are also strangely showing uptick in deaths and hospitalizations also in October. And I'm wondering what's behind all that, especially when we are doing rather well.
I think I cut you short, but did we ever figure out how Nashville's been doing?
How Nashville has been doing.
I know that Adam just went there.
Yeah, I'm not sure I know what you mean by that. In Tennessee is great
if they have a influx of people in the hospital right now.
Oh, no.
Because they kind of let everybody out at before everyone else, and it is hot there. I mean, it's very humid and hot, but now they're shoulder to shoulder in all the bars.
I will look it up in just a second. So we're essentially 20,000 cases a
too.
day in this country, and I'm going to ask Dr. Murray, is that just going to be, are we going to be coexisting with this virus at a slow percolating rate, or are we going to have some more spikes coming down the road? And what can we do to predict and prevent all that? Let me look at Tennessee since you're asking. 1 second.
Also, we have a great Wednesday episode coming up tomorrow with Tyrus.
Oh, right. Excellent. That's good.
And you can go to drdrew.tv.
Yeah, Tennessee is 400 cases a day, 8 deaths a day, stable. Susan.
I'm sorry?
Tennessee is 400 cases a day, 8 deaths a day, stable. Almost nothing.
They have that Vanderbilt Medical Center too. So
yes, they do.
That's pretty big.
Oh, yeah. It's a great center.
It's kind of like a Vegas, type thing. It's like they have a lot of trauma
No. I wanted to
And they
go
have
to.
a good-
I wanted to go to Vanderbilt Medical School very badly.
A good medical
I really
school.
did. That was
Big. I mean, it's like I've been to both the Nashville Medical Center and one in Brooklyn, and one in Uptown, and one in Upper West Side near Harlem. And I got to say, the Vanderbilt one was by far the nicest and the biggest.
Pyro.
The one in
I know
Brooklyn,
you
not
were
so
giving me-
great. And Harlem was okay.
You're giving me grief for not pronouncing your name correctly. How safe are gyms? Gyms, I believe, are not safe. However, if you really follow safety procedures, if you wear a mask the whole time, and when I noticed people, I was in a region that didn't require masks, but I wore a mask the whole time. If you keep your hands away from your face, if you Clorox everything, if you wash your hands regularly, if you distance from people, it should be the same as any other environment. Should be good. And if it's ventilated, so much the better. Okay, everybody. We thank you for spending a little time with us. As you said, we'll be back tomorrow with the great Tyrus.
Yes, and I have a special treat
Ooh, tell me.
for all my calling out fans. I know we haven't done a show in a while, but people have been asking if we're going to talk to any spirits again soon. So tomorrow I have the amazing Cindy Keza and the rebel Colby. So we're gonna have a interview with a guest and take your calls.
And they're both very positive, and we could use some positivity.
Yeah,
right
we're
now.
not
So
going to
I-
talk about death and
I
destruction.
fully endorse you guys being out there. And just
Don't be
answering people's
afraid. It'll be
questions.
okay.
Why is my computer off?
What's the matter?
Interesting. I think my charger's off for some reason.
Oh,
All right, you guys.
are you losing juice?
Yeah. We thank you for being here.
We have to set you up for your USC talk too.
Yes,
so.
I'm giving a talk with the USC students right now, and I have to go do that. And I'll be giving a talk in Las Vegas on July 14th or something, Susan.
Yes, and also be sure to support our sponsors. Go to drdrew.com/True Niagen and use the code Drew at checkout.
We are both taking it. Adam's even taking it, I found out. And they told me the bottles show up and he takes them, he rips them out and goes and uses them. But I am an NAD fan. I'm an advocate. Again, watch the studies yourself. If you want to hear about, I talked to the scientist in detail in episode 333 on the Dr. Drew podcast. Also, I'll be speaking at the Freedom Fest 2020. This is a group of libertarians, apparently. And I'm going to be talking about COVID, my experience with it, my change in, how my opinions changed or didn't change, and what the consequences have been. I'm also going to run over the history of the 1918 Spanish flu and the common correlates with that history and what we did and did not do in the present
So is
day.
that conference open to the public?
I believe anybody can come, but I'm sure there's some sort of sign up or
We'll
fee
set
or
it.
something.
We'll get the links. We just signed up for it like yesterday. So
Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock, Susan. Is that
check
right?
out Sex with Emily.
And I'm looking at 3 o'clock on the schedule here, so 3 o'clock tomorrow. I'll see you then.